Islam, Islam, Moors, Islam. This is a newsflash. This is a newsflash in relationship to the Philadelphia Police Department of Pennsylvania. So this newsflash is in relationship to the Philadelphia Department of Police Department in relationships to losing them possibly losing their accreditation from the state of Pennsylvania. So I'm doing this newsflash specifically because we need to start reading more as a nation and as a people and know what's going on in our own environment within our own Moroccan Empire. So this article, I felt that's very necessary to present to you. Yes, I am Yashir Nakasha El Rose Bey, Supreme Judiciary for the Sovereign Theocratic Government, the Moorish National Republic, Federal Government, Northeast and Mexican Territories and Dominions. You can reach me at www.moorishamericanconsulate.org, or you can reach me at the new social networking site for Moors by Moors called Moors2Moors.com, which is a social platform for us by us, so we can start to align ourselves and get ourselves back into the constitutional fold of government and start acting in harmony with all the laws that we are upholding currently with all individuals, foreign and domestic, within the Moroccan Empire on the Northwest and Mexican continent, as well as the adjoining islands, Central and South America as well. So, without further ado, this article, please share this video. This article is in relationship to the Philadelphia Police Department losing their accreditations due to the fact that we're going to read it. I'm going to actually read the whole article. WHYY.org posted on this article. So did Philadelphia Trib or Philadelphia Tribune. The article's name was Philadelphia Police Department at risk of losing state accreditation. Philadelphia Department may be stripped of its authority or its statewide accreditation. And I'm going to explain what it is that they're ultimately saying, so you know exactly what's going on as it relates to activity that the Moors are doing, as well as other sovereign organizations, or let's say LLCs or incorporated entities are broadcasting Islam. I was like, so without further ado, I'm going to refer to both articles, but because I think WHYY is a little bit more reputable, I am going to speak in regards to that article on WHYY.org in relationship to the Philadelphia Police Department could lose its accreditation as soon as next week. This article was posted quite a minute ago. This article was posted July 21st, 2022, so that was this week or last week. And without further ado, let me speak. Okay, the Philadelphia Police Department could lose its accreditation as soon as next week. You have to know what accreditation means. I take most definitions from the Black's Law 4th edition, so I can give you a little bit more information as it relates to what it is that they are speaking about. So, the Philadelphia Police Department to lose its accreditation, and this is the purpose of it losing it. So, an accreditation, based on Black's Law, is an international law, and it means to accreditate, means to acknowledge, to receive as an envoy in his public character and give him credit in ranking accordingly. To send with credentials as an envoy. So it's an approval. So it's in a position of power. It's authority. How does one receive authority? Through an accreditation. Islam. So an envoy, international law, again, Black's Law Dictionary, is a public minister of the second class ranking next to or after an ambassador. Okay, now a minister in international law means an officer appointed by the government of one nation as a mediator or arbitrator between two other nations who are engaged in controversy with their consent. I air quote, with their consent, with a view of effecting an admirable, meaning an agreeable adjustment of the dispute. Okay, so it's kind of like a corporate version of a consul, right? A consul, which is based in international and treaty protected law, as well as the Constitution for the United States of America Republic, or as others would deem it, the United States Continental Congress, or the Continental United States of America. Islam. So I just gave you the definition of accreditation. I gave you the definition of envoy. I gave you the definition of minister, as well as ambassador. In international law is a public officer clothed with high diplomatic powers commissioned by a sovereign prince or state to transmit the international business commerce of its government at the court of the country to which it is sent. Islam. An officer is the incumbent of an office, one who is lawfully invested with an office. So you can't say somebody, this is why we always say you can't call them an officer, because they don't have an office. They were not elected by the people for the people. They are a for-profit corporation, which is a third-party interloper, right? So they were commissioned through an agency within the so-called corporate state to perform services, and based on what I'm about to read is kind of telling you about all of that. So a public officer is this: the right is invested with the right, the authority, and the duty created and conformed by law, by which for a given period, either fixed by law or enduring at the pleasure of the created power, an individual is invested, given, clothed with some portion of the sovereign functions of government for, air quotes, the benefit of the people. For, air quotes, the benefit of the people. So we always got to qualify the words that we're saying. We got to qualify what it is that we're talking about. We got to qualify who we the people are. I was like, because everything is contractual, everything is a contract under trust, treaty, and constitutional contract law. Islam, all of these are agreements that one has the consent to either make or to expatriate from. Islam. So without further ado, I gave you some background as it relates to what some of these definitions mean, so you'll know exactly what it is that I'm saying. So the police department could lose its accreditation as soon as next week, and this article again was done last week, July 21st, 2022. This is an article on whyy.org. Okay, the change would be in response to the driving equality bill. There was a driving equality bill that was passed by the General Assembly of the Pennsylvania General Assembly. Now we're talking about a corporation which was established. Can't get that particular date of, I think it was in the 1700s when the so-called Pennsylvania colony or company was established. And understand, we're talking about a company. We're not talking about a sovereign power, because individuals receive their sovereign power from the people, for the people, in protection of the people for which it was established. Islam. Okay. So the driving equality bill was passed, and I have the documentation, and I'm going to upload it when I upload this video onto the YouTube later today for everybody to see, so you get a little idea as to what's going on in regards to that. So the ordinance, it's called a ordinance achieving driving equality, driving equality. Now I'm going to qualify a lot of words here, so stay with me. Islam. The change would be in response to a driving equality bill passed by the city council last year. Okay, the law prevents police from stopping drivers for minor traffic violations and was intended to prevent racial disparity amongst traffic stops. And we know exactly where I'm going with this, but stay with me. I'm going to wrap it up. But I want to get I want to read this article for you. Okay, according to a report from the Board in Liberty on Tuesday, the bill puts law enforcement agencies at odds with their oath of office because they can't fully enforce the state's vehicle codes. Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission, which is referred to as the PLEAC, Accreditation Program Coordinator James Adams says that this puts Pennsylvania or Philadelphia police accreditation at risk, but residents shouldn't see an immediate impact on safety. Islam. So they're trying to make it seem like it's in conjunction with the Pennsylvania driving rule, which is under Title 75 of the Pennsylvania General Assembly. Okay, now the Pennsylvania General Assembly is in connection with, and is supposed to be completely mimics the United States Commercial Code. I'm going to get to those things, but I want to read the article. Okay. No municipality, including a city of the first class, has the authority to pass any ordinance that supersedes state law. So that's our sticking point, Adam says, okay? So we qualified that. Municipal codes cannot supersede the state constitution, and the state constitution cannot supersede the United States Constitution. Anything that is against or in controversy with the United States Constitution, which all so-called member states are in contract with, will lose their accreditation because they're not following the law, and the law is the law. And if you don't follow the law, you're going to lose your accreditation because you work for the people. Okay? So immediately, are you out on the streets going to see a change as far as no in service that Philly PD? Probably not, Adam said, but long ago, as there being the ramifications, I suspect probably. So that was the article in regards to the WHYY. It didn't go too in detail because they didn't say too much. But now I'm going to rotate over to the Broad in Liberty website, broadinliberty.com website, which has an exclusive article that specifies Philadelphia Police Department to lose its accreditation, and it goes a little further as to why they're going to lose it if they don't make some changes and they don't do what they ought to have been doing the whole entire time they've been in operation, because every organization, every corporation that is so registered and tied to the United States Service Corporation is tied to the Constitution for the United States of America Republic, and nothing within that corporate contract, that corporate constitution, can go against the Republic, from which it was created and established, and what gave it its authority. Okay? So the Pennsylvania Police Department is slated to have its state accreditation revoked in less than a week. So that's this week. Largely because it fails to put back on the cities, because it failed to push back on the city's driving equality bill, according to a manager with the accrediting agency. That bill enacted a department policy restricting officers, and I'm going to replace that word because they were not elected by the people to perform an office, to sit or commission in an office. So they are patrolmen, they are policy enforcers, they are security guards. They do not have a position of authority issued by the Constitution, so they don't have an office. Okay? But we're also talking about the Pennsylvania General Assembly of that incorporated entity. Know what I'm talking about? I'm using specific words specifically. Know what they mean. Get your Black's Laws out. Read them. Islam. So, according to a manager with the accrediting agency, that bill enacts a department policy restricting officers from making traffic stops to enforce 8 sections of the Pennsylvania Code. Here are the 8 sections that they are slated restricting officers from making traffic stops to enforce 8 Pennsylvania municipal codes. And those 8 codes are, as I will read them to you if I find them. Okay. Registrations of vehicles. So this is Title 75 PASC subsection 1301, which is registration of vehicles. Section 1310.1C, temporary registration permits. And then I'm just going to give you, y'all can run down. Like I said, I'm going to post all of this on for validity purposes, and you can read it at your leisure. Please read it. This is your defense when you are, if you unlawfully get detained or pulled over on the side of a road. Every state, and overstand, it doesn't just necessarily just mean Pennsylvania state, because once it is enacted in any state, it is for all states. It doesn't matter what state it appears. Just go read what version is in the so-called municipal corporation, because it's a municipal corporation. All of them are a municipal corporation. Okay? The other one is display of registration plates, period, for requiring light lamps other obstructions, bumpers, operation of vehicles without official certificate of inspection, unlawful operation without evidence of emission, inspections, okay? So that's telling you pretty much what they can't stop you for, okay? And understand that when they put these notifications out there, when they put these ordinances out there, it's just a re-up to what they ought to have been doing the whole entire time. And unfortunately, they have to put new bills out because they want to hide the fact that they've been violating you this whole entire time by stopping you for these so-called municipal codes that are in controversy with the Constitution for the United States of America Republic, along with the state constitutions, and anything that's within the state constitution that is against the Constitution for the United States of America, you do not have to adhere to unless you consent to adhere to it, Islam. That being said, I'm going to go back to it. The Pittsburgh Police Department, due to a similar ordinance, are also at risk of losing their accreditation. So this is going unilaterally, and I guarantee you it's because of the liens that Moors have been placing on the departments as well as department heads, because their staffs, their employees are not following the law. And like I said, municipal codes do not supersede the laws of the land, the supreme laws of the land, which is the Constitution for the United States of America, for which all of these agencies are commissioned. They are commissioned, which gives them their authority, is the Constitution for the United States of America. And if they violate that, and if they do not do what they ought to have been doing the whole entire time, that's a violation. And that's why we can sanction them as the people, because we are the ones that consent to it when they violate their office. And this is why you're supposed to get a copy of their surety bond. This is why you're supposed to get a copy of their oath of office, but we're going to get to that in a second. The Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission, also known as the PLEAC, sent a letter to the Philadelphia Police Commissioner Daniel Outlaw and Pittsburgh Police Chief Scott Schubert in April. So they were warned in April to notify them that enacting official department policies that attempt to supersede the Pennsylvania Vehicle Code means their departments are no longer in full compliance with the state's accreditation program and standards, even if those policies are enacted with the intent of complying with municipal codes, okay, or municipal ordinances. In gaining PLEAC accreditation, police agencies have to comply to the following standards, which is 1.1.1, which requires, in air quotes, a written directive requiring all law enforcement personnel, they don't call them officers, you see that, they call them personnel, law enforcement personnel, prior to performing their sworn duties, to take and subsequently abide by with an oath of office to support, obey, and defend the Constitution of, which should say for, the United States of America, and the Pennsylvania Constitution, and the laws and the governmental subdivisions in which he or she will discharge the duties of office with fidelity. So they're telling you, you got all these law enforcement agents on the floor, on the staff, employees, performing a duty, and they're breaching their duty because they were sworn to protect and defend the Constitution for the United States of America, along with the Pennsylvania state constitution, and they're enforcing municipal codes of the so-called county from which that employs them, even though every county is subject to the state because of the contract that they abide by and that they willingly submitted to consent. Newly hired law enforcement employees, they say officers, in a manner prescribed by the agency shall also acknowledge that they will uphold, obey, and enforce the law without consideration to a person's race, color, sex, religious creed, nationality, Moorish nationality, sexual orientation, age, national origin. That's a little misspelled. National origin, ancestry, handicap, or disability. So that means you, Moors, because you expatriated from that corporation and that company, and you are now a Moorish American national if you nationalized through this government under the Moorish National Republic Federal Government, Northeast and Mexican Territories and Dominions. So you're not subject to any municipal code of Pennsylvania or the state of Pennsylvania or the counties. You're not under that. You're under foreign allegiance. Okay? I was like, so they're pulling you over and trying to contract with you and fining you when they don't have the lawful authority or right to do so, because they don't even have the right to sit there and give you a fine. They don't have the right because they are not an office. They are a third-party interloper, which is why all they do is give you a citation, and then they got to go file that with the clerk in order for the so-called judge to effectuate it under their municipal corporation. Okay, according to James Adams, the PLEAC Accreditation Program Coordinator for the Pennsylvania Chief of Police Association, the Philadelphia Police Department Commissioner, and Accreditation Manager were sent the April letter advising them, so they got due process warning them that it came to the attention of the Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission, the PLEAC, that with the enactment of the City Code subsection 12-1700, which is the Driving Equality Bill policy, Executive Order 6-21, Philadelphia Police Department is no longer in full compliance with the accreditation program and standards. What they're trying to tell you is that none of their policy enforcers, none of their agencies, none of their law enforcement employees have taken oaths to the Constitution for the United States of America or the state. And they're out there giving people fines, and they don't have the lawful right or authority backing them to do that. And that's why when they do go to the city, when they do go to the clerks to file, the clerk administrators of these municipalities and these so-called counties, they're supposed to not even file those citations. They're not supposed to file them. They're supposed to throw them away. Okay, especially if they didn't get consent. If they didn't get consent, where you signed it and you said, yeah, I'm going to abide by this, that's consent. If they didn't get consent, if you said, I do not wish to contract, I do not consent to contract. And most of it, I don't consent to contract. That I am not driving, because that's a commercial activity. And you will see that in a second. By passing 3 ordinances, Adam argues that the city of Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh have attempted to supersede constitutionally legislative state law with municipal ordinances, which puts law enforcement agencies and their employees at odds with their oath of office by barring them from enforcing 8 sections of the state vehicle code, which we read earlier. Like I said, I'm going to put this on social media. I'm going to put it on YouTube, and I'm going to link all of these references so you can read it at your leisure and know what I am talking about. Okay. Had Commissioner Outlaw, we're talking about the commissioner, the police commissioner of Pennsylvania, of Philadelphia Police Department, and her staff pushed back or come up with a creative solution to comply with the ordinances, such as allowing officers to make stops, but allowing policy enforcers to make stops, but only issue written warnings as opposed to fines, because they don't have the lawful authority to issue any fines, and nor do they have the lawful authority to stop you for a warning. They can't stop you for a warning or issue you a warning because they're following municipal codes and they're violating the very oaths for which they were sworn into office. Which is why every time you ask them for it, they don't have it to produce. So they're highwaymen, bandits, and terrorists, because they're not operating in harmony with the Constitution for the United States of America or the state constitution. And that's what this article is saying, which is why they're losing their accreditation. We'll see. And this is them trying to cover up all the fraud that's really been going on and try to make it seem like the so-called institution is not at fault for all of this because they're not training their staff in accordance to the law. It is on them. It is their fault. It is the PLEAC's fault because they should have been following the rights, because we've been sending affidavits not only to the so-called agencies that are in violations, but we've been sending them to the governor, we've been sending them to international criminal courts of justice, we've been sending them to the archbishop who they're under, we've been sending them to all of them. So everybody is in awareness of all of the violations that our people have been dealing with. So if they're not taught it, it's not our problem, because they are taking an office, and that office says that you have to stand. And that's any and all so-called corporations that are registered under the so-called United States Corporation Company, because that is only got its authority through the United States American Constitution, and it can't contradict it. It cannot contradict it, and anything that contradicts it is fraud. And anything that I can't even say the word. Anything that goes against it is null and void. That's why you got to read the Constitution. That's why you got to read the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, and you're going to keep reading it until you understand what it is that it's saying, and hold them accountable, because that is their charter. That is their only authority. And if it's not in there, there is no authority for which they can say you can't travel on your own ancestral inherited estate, when the driving privilege and the driving record based on United States USC Code, you're going to get a copy of this, which is the United States Code 2020 edition, Title 49, Transportation, subtitle, Motor Vehicle and Driving Program. The driving program is commercial, right? So under subsection 30101, purpose and policy. Purpose and policy. Before you go in there and start dissecting different statutes and different sections, read the purpose for which that section was created. And the purpose for Title 49 USC, the Transportation Code for the United States of America, Republic, and anything against the Constitution that is even within this is a violation, and it's a private contract. And if you do consent, you are obligated to consent, but you can always terminate that consent, because you are the sovereign people of the land. We the people, for the people. Islam. So, subsection 301-1, Section 30101, purpose and policy. The purpose of this chapter is to reduce traffic accidents and deaths and injuries resulting from traffic accidents. Therefore, it is necessary in Section 1 to prescribe motor vehicle safety standards for motor vehicles and motor vehicle equipment. And here's the purpose. In interstate commerce, and to carry out needed safety research and development. So in all of that, they said, yeah, this is created to help and assist people to make sure everybody's safe on the road, but its authority only extends to the extent of interstate commerce. Interstate commerce. So driving is for people who are interacting in interstate commerce. So if you are traveling, meaning going to and from wherever it is that you want to go to and from, is your business, and it is your private business. Nobody can sit here and ask you where you going, where you coming from. If you are not driving, because driving is a commercial activity, and what constitutes driving means you're hauling people or you're hauling goods for commerce, for trades. That's what Title 49 of the United States Transportation Code is saying. And any so-called state and every other so-called state codes are in harmony with this, because this is where they get their authority, the Constitution. And they are people, they are indentured servants, they are commissioned to follow the law, and when they don't follow the law, it is our responsibility as the people, the beneficiaries for which that law was even established, to hold them accountable through liens, which is a charge, a violation, an adverse claim. It's all of those things. Islam. So, Mayor Jim Kennedy's office did not reply to request the comments at this time. Of course, they're not going to reply to request the comments at this time. Sergeant Eric Grip, a Philadelphia police spokesman, confirmed the pending revocation of his department's accreditation, meaning it's being revoked. Revocation is revoking, terminating that agreement, that commercial contract between two entities, because one gave you the authority, and that authority was based on these laws, which is the Constitution for the United States of America, and then the Constitution for the state of Pennsylvania. But the Constitution for the United States of America supersedes it, right? So if you are a foreign national, you are not subject to the so-called state constitution. You are not subject to that. And Moors are only subject to the Constitution for the United States of America as it relates to the treaties and as it relates to the Bill of Rights. Islam. Accreditation is, and then now it's going to give you the definition of accreditation. Let's see if it missed its mark. Accreditation is certification that the department employs best practices regarding policies and procedures throughout the department, while the potential loss of accreditation over matters beyond the scope of the police department is disheartening. We will maintain the practice of employing best practices. This is the best interest of the department and the people that we serve. They serve you. They serve the people. They serve the people. They serve you. Okay? Their duty is first to you. When asked if the conflict with state law and the potential violations of accreditation standards was considered when the driving equality bill was passed, absolutely it was. And subsequent PPD policies were issued, Grip wrote, the PPD, Philadelphia Police Department, was advised that the driving equality bill did not violate state law. On the contrary, the ordinances does not ban the enforcement of low-level traffic offenses, but rather only modifies how these violation offenses will be enforced. GRIP did not comply with, did I read that? Okay. GRIP did not specify who advised the PPD, the Philadelphia Police Department, that the bill was not in conflict with the state vehicle code. Okay, the state vehicle code is subject to the United States Code 49. So Pennsylvania Title 75 is subordinate to United States Code Title 49. Okay? And they all are subject to the Constitution for the United States of America, which doesn't stipulate anything in regards to telling you can't travel on your ancestral inherited estate. It cannot also say that you have to have a driver's license. No one has to have a driver's license, and that was started in what, 1925? 1925. It was a code. It's a code. Even says it's code. It's not law. It's a code. All right, GRIP did not specify who advised the PPD that the bill was not in conflict with the state vehicle code, nor how these violating offenses could be enforced without affecting a stop of the violating vehicle. How is a vehicle violating? How can a vehicle violate? City Council passed the bill, drafted by Council member Isaiah Thomas in October 21st to address what is going on. Give me a second, because this is insane. I don't know what's going on. Oh my goodness. I gotta turn my phone off in a minute. So, City Council passed the bill, drafting the council member Isaiah Thomas in October 2021 to address that Thomas characterized as racial disparity regarding traffic stops conducted by traffic offenses used for probable cause to conduct searches for more serious crimes. You cannot search and seize any property. Is a violation of the Constitution for the United States of America without a warrant. And a policy enforcer does not have the authority to, one, issue a fine. They don't have authority to issue a fine. They cannot sit there and go on the streets and issue you a fine. What they can do is file a complaint against you, and a judge would have to issue a actual citation, and he can only do that if he has jurisdiction, and jurisdiction is only received through consent. Meaning you got to consent to contract, but we don't consent to contract, right? Okay. While Thomas characterized this traffic enforcement to single out people of color, of course they're doing that, been doing that. Increased enforcement. Adams notes that the introduction of his bill was not accompanied by a valid study nor state legislation to make his proposed violations secondary stops. Therefore, if the bill's goal was to reduce the potential for bias and to improve relations between the police and the community, why wasn't it codified by changes to state law? Adams himself, a former police chief, acknowledged that officers regularly use discretion when enforcing minor laws or conducting traffic stops. They don't have any right to enforce. They're not consuls. Only consuls can do that. Policy enforcers don't even have an office. So if you don't have an office, you have to comply to whatever code system that you are under, and that code system can't violate the law for which gave it to its authority to exist. Exam. Okay, where am I at? Noting that the Philadelphia police could have set these priorities internally within the department. However, the craft to craft an ordinance that prohibits officers from enforcing the law or being able to make lawful stops that have saved lives is what puts Philadelphia and Pittsburgh out of compliance. No, babies. They're putting you back in compliance, actually, because you've been out of compliance and trying to hinge off of the fact that the purpose of this chapter is to reduce traffic accidents and violations and deaths and injuries resulting from traffic stops. So they're trying to use that to supersede the fact that that's a contract, and if you don't have a contract, and if you are traveling, and if you do not consent to contract, they cannot violate you. This is a private contract. It's a private contract, y'all. So they're talking in parables here. Y'all need to know how to read. Interpret what it is that you're reading. Adams further noted Councilman Thomas' concern, saying that the PLEAC wanted to review data proving that the Philadelphia police traffic enforcement policies target people of color for enforcement, and more specifically, how the driving equality ordinance would address such a problem while preserving public safety. So their job and their purpose is to make sure that people are traveling upon the land safely, and the only individuals they have the lawful authority based on the contract is people who are submitting to the driving privilege. But you have a right to travel that nobody can stop. But you have to be in your proper person in order for that to actually exist. How does this bill actually correct the problem of bias as its proponents suggest? Adam asks, how does prohibiting officers, policy enforcers, law enforcement employees from enforcing these 8 sections of the vehicle code, however, solve the issue of racial disparity? What solves the issue of so-called racial disparity is nationality. Nothing else solves that, because you need to know the law and you need to hold them accountable. The reasons why Albions or modern Europeans that think that they are white people don't get pulled over is because they know the freaking law. They know they have a right to travel. They know they don't need a darn license or tags or registration in order to perform. But actually, they do, because they are not the original inhabitants of the land, so they are subject to the driving code. You're not. What this means for Philadelphians, they use that code now. They use that. So don't call yourself a Philadelphian or a Pennsylvanian. Call yourself a Moorish American national. Make sure you don't devalue yourself because you've fallen for the grammar semantics that they like to put out there. Islam. Independent law enforcement's accreditation includes review of department policy, institution of best practices, annual reporting, and an independent external audit conducted every 3 years. Need to be conducted every year. One of the big drivers of this process is the reduction of operational risk and loss control. Lose control, as comparative statistics review conducts over the last 3 decades show a positive correlation between accreditation and a reduction in liability and workers' compensation claims. All right? So it goes to so much more in it, right? But I'm going to read the rest of it. I'm going to just read the rest of it. It's not that much. By being accredited, agencies can improve their policies, training, and transparency to effectively defend themselves against lawsuits, reduce substantiated citizen complaints, equipped command staff with a proven management system, and allow agencies an independent, external vetted change management and self-audit system. In losing their accreditation, Philadelphia exposes itself to costly litigation risks for existing and future civil claims against the police department, meaning if they lose their accreditation, they lose their funding. If they lose their funding, they can't insure themselves. If they are uninsurable, they cannot operate within commerce. You have to be insurable. Nobody's gonna contract with you if you can't even insure yourself, and you can't insure yourself because you're in breach of the freaking Constitution for the United States of America, which you pledged an oath to. If you pledged an oath, you got to be bonded through that oath that you pledged. So when you do violate Asiatics, when you do violate Moorish American nationals, when you do violate people, they can go and sanction you for that violation through their what? Their private trust. That's why y'all got to get y'all trust done more. So when you have a violation, you can send them your due process and invoice them for their violations, and send a copy of that to their bonding insurance company, because that's a grievance filed, and that is in harmony with what? Bill of Rights number 1, right to grievance. Furthermore, without an annual PLEAC accreditation audit due, what measures will the Pennsylvania Police Department have to maintain compliance and show it is transparent in opening their policies, procedures, and operations to a valid third-party review? have Commissioner Outlaw, and it's so funny, that's his name, Outlaw, or her name, Commissioner Outlaw. Seriously. Or Chief Schubert delayed any orders that conflicted with their oath of office until state lawmen were consulted, their department's accreditation would not be at risk. More importantly, had they voiced objections as law enforcement employees, given the record homicides recorded in both Philadelphia and Pennsylvania last year, on why it may be irresponsible to consider greater restrictions on law enforcement when an all-hands approach is needed, these unlawful ordinances may not have passed in the first place. To this, Adams says, with the risk in crime throughout our nation, why would we prohibit our policy enforcers, police officers, from using the lawful tools at their disposal to address it? No policy enforcer has a right to give you a ticket. They don't have the right to give you a ticket. All they can do is file a complaint against you in their municipal court and see you come in there through that violation. But outside of that, they can't do anything. They don't have any authority. They don't have an office. They ain't even bonded, what they're trying to tell you. They ain't even bonded, because you got to take an oath and you got to bond before you start operating in that office or in that seat of power or in that authority. You have to be bonded. So why can't nobody find their bonds? Because they ain't got none, because they are illegal and they're unlawful and they are private. All right, now there were some updates on the article. Let me read the updates of the article. The updates of the article, the original article of this incorrectly attributed to statements of the PPD with the Philadelphia Police Department for Eric, whoever his name is, Eric McLaurin. The statement should have been attributed to Sergeant Eric Grip and have been changed to reflect that. Additionally, the original version of this article said that the bonus structure for meeting accreditation was $5,000 per officer for a total of $33 million. Why would we have to pay somebody to do their job and to follow the law? No, we don't do that. You follow the law, or you get decommissioned. They're getting decommissioned for not following the law. So that was that article. And then I read you the Title 49. And then we got stare decisive cases. I also talked about the so-called ordinance that they passed, which was achieving driving equality, which is for commerce. So Moors and people, they can't hold you to a commercial contract that you don't have to do. Plus, they are not persons. How do you find their binding insurance? You find the binding insurance through the clerk of courts or the Secretary of State of that particular state. If the clerk of courts talk about they ain't got it, and the Secretary of State talk about they ain't got it, they don't have it. And if they don't have it, what that mean? They're operating illegally. Don't you know that's the reason why you can't get it, because they operating illegally? They're operating illegally, because as soon as you ask for their bonding insurance, they're supposed to provide that information. And if they don't have it readily and available, then they don't have it. And they're operating in a fraud, and you should be lenient them for violation of that and not giving it to you and not providing you where it exists. And it should not be hidden, whereas though you can't just scroll on the internet and find it, because they're public employees supposed to be. They're violating the piece that they're supposed to be protecting. Islam. I was like, and then you have these stare decisis cases that kind of enforce thing, and you need to know what stare decisis res judicata cases mean. Meaning, if this has already been decided, if we've already decided this, you can't sit here and do an offense to me against it. But again, we talk of private contracts, so always say, I don't consent to contract. I don't consent to contract. Prove to me we got a contract. Why would I consent for you to administer over me when you can't even administer over your own selves or your own people? Islam. So I'm going to just read a couple of them. They're on the website though. Colinder versus Lawson. There is no such thing as a failure to identify. Don't they sit here and tell you fail to identify it, and they try to give you citations or summonses or fines because you didn't present them with a corporate card? Well, why would you present them with a corporate card? You got a nationality. Of course I'm going to show you my national identification card, because you don't have no authority here. Because I don't consent to contract. Because you're a private mercenary company. It's cheating the estates of the people. State versus Robinson. An illegal arrest is an assault and battery. State versus Mobley. Each person has the right to resist an unlawful arrest. So how they gonna sit here and charge you with resisting arrest? Well, it was unlawful. That's why I'm resisting, because you ain't had the right to do it. You ain't have the right to arrest me for not providing you with so-called your version under your municipal code proper identification. My national identification card supersedes yours, and the Department of Justice regulations so stipulate that. I'll get it. It's right here. I'll read it since it's a perfect opportunity. It was really available. Section 1028 of Title 18 designates 3 specific non-federal identification documents and give them preferred treatment. These 3 documents, in absence of the National Identification Card, are the primary means by which an individual establishes his identity in the United States. And those documents are birth certificate, driver's license, personal identification card. But the driver's license is not an identity card, and it so states that in this regulation, in this law, under the Department of Justice. So they're all in violation of that. You pull that out like, dude, my national identification card supersedes those other corporate cards that you're asking for, and a driver's license document is not proof of identity. It's not. It's a commercial instrument giving certain individuals the privilege, but you have the right to travel. Islam? That's this right here. And then we have another article. It was done by the United States of America Department of Travel, the United States of America Department of Travel, where it talks about, Dear Governor Hogan, this was back in 2015, y'all. We are sending this correspondence to make you aware of the unconstitutional acts committed by your law enforcement agencies and state courts against the people. Here is talking about of Maryland. These acts may or may not have been committed knowingly or unintentionally, but we are writing to your office to ensure that these violations are brought to your attention so that they can be attributed, so that they can be addressed and corrected. As you may or may not know, there are people in your state who domicile near your corporate territory, whose status is ostentatiously different than the average so-called United States citizen, or are considered foreign nationals or American nationals with certain safeguards and protections under the law. Our primary concern is that their travel rights in your state are not infringed. So this is notification due process. In order to educate your law enforcement agencies regarding foreign nationals or American nationals in your state, you can call the Department of State here in Washington, D.C. to get clarification, or you can go to the Department of State's website, has the link here, or another website, which is the USA.gov website /travel, and download the manual so they have accessibility to the law. The department also offers training for your employees free of charge to raise awareness and compliance so we can stop getting fined and violated because we don't teach our staff the law. We have encouraged or enclosed one of our affidavits forms for the exemption of registration and licensing for foreign nationals that foreign nationals have filed. So they're trying to tell you you can file some additional documentation, but you don't need to file no additional documentation because you have the right to travel, and no so-called state municipal code or the federal district can sit here and impose upon your God-given right. And the United Nations Declarations of the Rights of the Indigenous, the United Nations Declaration of the Human Rights, as well as the rights of the child, not to mention others, the OSA, and as well as ETC, already tell you have the rights. You have all the rights. You're contracting them away through your ignorance. And with that, I yield. I only wanted you to get this article. I only wanted to do this broadcast so you could have some understanding as it relates to why that article was published. And I was informed of that article. Somebody sent me that article. Actually, Amir Taj Tariq Bey sent me that article 2 days ago, and I felt it necessary to do a podcast, a video in regards to that. Watch this video again. I'm going to post it on my YouTube channel along with all of the things that I just read to you, so you know the law, enforce the law, and compel them to operate in honor. And if they don't operate in honor, make sure you put your liens, the violations, which is a grievance, as well as an adverse claim against these agencies that are violating the supreme laws of the land, that they are duty bound to protect, defend, and secure. And with that, Islam, peace and love, y'all. Y'all have a great day. It's Monday. It's gloomy Monday because the sun ain't out, but the sun was kicking our butts all weekend with these almost 100-degree weather. So with that, I'll yield. Peace and love, y'all. Y'all have a great evening. Again, I'm going to post it on my social platform for you guys to have at your leisure as it relates to everything that I've said. So peace and love. Islam.